against this motion unless it's amended. To just remove that portion of it.
My only reason, council, for suggesting that boards they are creatures of this committee, of this council, and it seems to me we should have a standardization from top to bottom, so there is no question about doing things differently, and then we wind up questioning that. I think some standardization is worthwhile, and so I would support including boards below this council in that policy.
Okay, can I have a discussion?
I agree with Mr. Ralston. I think for the same rationale that we have for interpretation and ease of use and so on would even more so apply to our advisory boards and other committees.
Okay, since we're on the, Mr. Slavy.
Yep, I just wanted to say that on this motion, absolutely agree with the idea of action minutes and carrying it down to all boards. And I think, like you mentioned, the staff time for all those, and it's wonderful. I only have one problem, which is the 3 years piece, which Councilman Rich is talking about as far as the time frame. When it says up to 3 years, is there a way that we could make it to say as much as is reasonably possible or something? Because I do believe that. Yeah.
There's all, once you start keeping tapes, audio or video, there's a standard that is applied to all governments about how long they should be kept for public record purposes, and she knows that. So that's the baseline, and then everything up from there is essentially gravy.
And the reason that I mentioned that was in studying for this public art discussion, I tried to find on the web or on the site here the minutes, and they only went so far. And so I had to Google and find articles from the Orlando Sentinel to get a little more color, and that would seem better if I actually could listen to the council from 2007 and their conversation about public art. So that's why. Can we do that? That's what I want to do. And I think that's what Councilman Rich is looking for too. If we could do that, I would prefer.
Okay, does anybody from the public wish to address this issue? Okay, seeing none, back to council. Any other comments?
No, my only comment would be that I don't know what's the appropriate length of time. I think I agree with Mr. Shepherd that the state will give us some guidelines, and certainly the public is certainly willing and or capable and of downloading to their own private devices any audio that they wish to download. So if you want to keep a record of every single word that's said at every single meeting, you have the ability, as long as you have enough storage space on your device to do that. So,
well, I think we ought to vote on this, but I also think for the same reason the author was here today and said that it's great to be able to go back and look at newspaper clippings from 1916, as long as it's prudent for the city, storage-wise and so on, to maintain those records for 5 years or 8 years or whatever. I think that's a wonderful thing, and we ought to do it if it's economically feasible and if we have the space and so on and so forth.
And that can still be done with this resolution.
Okay. I missed your comment, I'm sorry. Say it again, your last comment, Mr. Olson.
See, I believe that can still be done with this resolution.
No, I realize I don't want to set any time frame on audio at this point. I think we can come back and do that as a separate item with the recommendation from the staff on that. And let them have us come back with something that's going to be that we can go with. So, Ms. Johnson, we have a roll call, please.
We need a motion, Mayor. You did a motion. Cal did a motion.
Yeah, we had a motion on that, right?
I'm sorry, it's so echoey again.
I'm sorry, I've got it here. Mr. Rolfson.
Yes.
Mr. Crayo.
Yes.
Mr. Roulette?
Yes.
Ms. Tillett?
Yes.
Ms. Rich?
No.
Mr. Slavy?
Yes.
Mayor Jerome?
No.
Just for the, in keeping with the statement just made by Mr. Pastu, would it be accurate to reflect in the following minutes that there was a majority consensus of city council to bring back a future agenda item regarding the term of storage of the video, or unanimous consent? It's either majority consensus or unanimous consent. And I heard some concern from you, Councilwoman Tillett. You might want to just stick with the statutory limits. So, just to make sure the record is kept.
I think right now, what we're doing right now is that they're gonna come back with the staff's gonna come back with a recommendation as far as the audio and let that work like that.
But, so there's majority consent to bring that back.
Yes, I think, yeah, we all agree that it is, okay. Okay, let's get down to the approval of some minutes, and I know there was probably some corrections on there, but, can we get to the approval of the minutes for the September 17th, regular meeting?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion, corrections on those minutes? Mrs. Stewart?
Yes, there were a couple of corrections on this. I don't know if the packets included the corrections. They're very minor, but as long as we are approving, I only saw the ones that came back to me.
The original minutes that are going to be signed for the permanent record reflect the corrections. And I did change it on the online copy. I did not change it on the ones in Dropbox.
Okay.
Real quick before you start, I guess, certain councilman's already talked to you about some corrections, and you made all the corrections that they've talked to you about at this point.
They were nothing more than changing Mr. to Ms.
Okay, so there's no need to go over those changes again now.
Yeah, well, there was one where there was one person omitted and the other person on there twice. But I mean, just as long as we are approving them, I just wanted to make sure that everybody at the table had the corrections.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's all, yeah.
Mr. Sadie?
I just want to make sure we do this the most efficient way. On this particular one, there's 3 typos on names. Tellin is Tellin, Johnston, it should be Johnson, and Farrago is Farrago. And as far as I heard here, as far as some council members sharing ideas of changes prior to this meeting, just how should we do that? Because that's a minor thing. I don't need to, tie up time.
I'm sorry. Did you ask a question on that? I'm sorry.
But I just, there's 3 minor spellings here,
No, that's fine. If you want to, make those corrections, and have to make those corrections, that's fine.
But I also want to, if I see one next week.
The answer to the question is, as you all know, I think, you have access to any employee at any time, as long as it's Miss Johns or Mr. Pastu. And so Miss Johns is the clerk, so if you had a spelling error or whatever, then you could discuss it with her. And if the tape reflects something different, she's going to have to say, hey, you have to bring it back to council. But the bottom line is, for those kinds of things, yeah, all of those can be corrected, and usually are, prior to us getting here.
Is there any other corrections on that? I have a couple for Mrs. Johnson. I had an opportunity to go over, and the after we certified the voting for the motion made by Vice Mayor to accept the election results. After we accepted them, you don't have the listing there of the roll call of the new count of the new members. We did a roll call prior to that. Okay. That was it.
As I was writing minutes, I kind of felt like the fact that I swore you guys in here reflected everybody that was present, but I can certainly do.
Yeah, we had to do a roll call for the new council
We can
at
have
that
that,
point,
no
so
problem.
that's no problem. And, okay, so all in favor of the approval of those minutes? Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, they pass. And take a motion to approve the minutes of the December 1st meeting.
So moved.
discussion? Any corrections on that one? Okay, the only correction I had on that one was on the page 15 of 103 in our packet. It was at the very end, right before the adjournment. You didn't record the vote on that motion.
There was none.
Oh, we had none. Okay, thank you.
I could reflect that on the minutes if you like, so it doesn't look like.
Yeah, it might be good that there was no vote. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Seeing none, passes. And next item is the December 8th meeting. Get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, any corrections on that one?
Then the first line, to just have it say Mayor, Nick Jordan.
Sorry. Cut and paste. Sorry.
Okay, any other corrections? And I just have one on, I had a question on that one, and I should have called you, and I apologize on this one. It's on my appointment of Mr. Berger, and I believe that was a 2-year appointment to 2017, so I'm all there for 2016. I believe Mrs. Atkinson's appointment was over at that point.
I will double check.
If you would, if it's fine, if it's correct, then leave it. If it's not, then would you mind please changing to 2017?
Sure,
Okay, and I don't know if I missed something here, but in the on the last page, we got into all the mayor appointments that we did for the MP and all that. They're not listed in here.
This is what happens when y'all make me redo the minutes.
I know. We apologize.
Adam.
We apologize for that.
And I'm sorry.
But in the
I missed
future,
that.
you will
Okay,
hopefully
good.
won't be going through this in the future, so.
I'll fix that. Sorry about that.
Okay. Any other? That's it. All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Seeing none, passes. Okay. We have now over to the new business. Scheduling a workshop, goal setting meetings, and I'd like to, at that point, if I don't know if we want to say anything right now at this point and get into discussion on that. Do you have any dates in mind? Because it is going to be an all-day thing.
I'm guessing at a minimum, probably 4 hours, we're looking at 4 hours at this time tonight.
I won't do this at night, and this will be done on this kind of workshop on Saturday or something, yeah. Can we kind of get back to you on some dates, some future dates on Saturday?
If you would prefer, we could have Gwen or Misty in our office send out and get feedback from council as to what days.
Throw some dates there. I think we can come back on that with you on that, and
Yeah, as long as we're all involved in helping select the date,
Sure.
we might have some conflicting issues.
Understood.
And other question I have, Council, is what's wrong with, we don't need necessarily one workshop. I know it's an extra day, and that's a problem. If it's going to be voluminous, time-consuming, why not break it up into 2 workshops?
we will. I think we do. And my intent really is to just be very brief on my intent with the workshops is I don't want to schedule a workshop for the city council, sit there, just talk about our normal business that we were discussing on the first meeting or second meeting of the month. I would like to see that set up, our very first workshop anyway, set up for, and I think I discussed with Mr. Pastu about where we talk about mission statement, we talk about goals, we talk about objectives, the action plan to get there. And we spend our time doing that with a facilitator from the league who can work with us and to establish what we need to do So we have a document that the council and staff and everybody's working on at that point. And that we're very first in doing that, and then we can address different workshops as we need them, if there's something very specific that we need to talk about, and, for an item. But just to spend a day talking about future items, I don't know if we want to spend doing that. I want to be more productive of the session. And then the next item on there is consideration and approval of the local agreement renewing the membership with the Lake Summer MPO. Sounds like this is a relatively routine item.
Mark Reagan again. I gave you the very short version and the very long version of this.
Very short.
If you want to remain members of the MPO, you need to approve this.
Okay, that sounds good. Motion for approval?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Mark? I don't think anybody's objecting. Thank you. That's done. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, city attorney update.
Ms.
Vote.
Excuse me,
We should vote on it. Didn't we vote?
we didn't vote on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more item of new business.
Go ahead.
While we are finalizing the RFQ for city attorney, I thought perhaps it would be good and it would help speed the process up if we published an announcement now that an RFQ or RFP is forthcoming. It would increase awareness in the legal community, especially since it will have a short advertising time that was on the proposed schedule. And I just wondered what my fellow council members thought of that idea of doing like it will be coming. So, and it will be posted on the Mount Dora City website and say the Friday after I guess January 22nd, which would be Friday after the RFQ is.
I have no problem with that. Yeah, we go ahead and post that. That's not an issue that we're looking at.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that staff be directed to release a electronic announcement that RFQ will be forthcoming for Mount Dora City Attorney.
Okay, there's a motion, we'll do that. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, this is just to put an announcement on our website.
Yes, no, I think this announcement needs to go on, perhaps be sent to the Florida League of Cities and
Okay, you didn't explain.
and the local, bar association, just to advertise that we are seeking, there will be we are seeking, respondents to not even we are seeking, but we will be releasing a request for qualifications on or about such and such.
I just thought you wanted it on our website. I think the other ones that might be, I don't know if there's any protocol with their websites and their announcement process on something like that.
Or the Orlando Sentinel, or
Orlando Sentinel's probably already put that in there, and she's right out there, and she's going to be doing something. She's got a thumbs up out there.
I just didn't know if that would help speed the process up.
It's innocuous. It just
Okay.
comes up and doesn't.
Yeah, it's a heads up, that's all.
So we had a motion, we have a second? We got a second? Okay, all in favor? Any objections to that? Okay. Got a nay. One nay. Mrs. Rich? You said nay? Okay, that's right. Okay, so with that still passes. Okay, city attorney update, unless there's no other new business, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't status of it, but I know that the process is ongoing to schedule meetings with those who request them for personal updates with perhaps more information on Medallion. I don't think that those have yet made it to my calendar, but they are upcoming. And so that's really, there's nothing else to report. We've heard nothing. I don't really frankly expect to hear anything from Medallion or its council regarding settlement unless we approach them. That's the information I've been provided, and there's nothing that's been told any different. So there we are.
Okay. And just in line with that, and an initiative is put into the city manager's memo to the council. The I think the direction from what I gathered, from the direction from the council at the one meeting that we had, that the council was more, there's nothing wrong with them going to to the attorney and set up a meeting and talk on their own. But I think when we got out to the actual discussions, we wanted a shade meeting so we can play off each other, so we can hear what everybody has to say and do that in a shade fashion. So if we're going to get into that, we want to get into work into some kind of a settlement agreement, then we definitely want a shade meeting.
That was my understanding as well, Mayor.
If that's the situation, then are we ready to schedule now? Because if we are, then I'll officially request it, and we will now pull out our calendars. Because I haven't checked with Ms. Sutphin. I don't know if her availability.
Again, is that something you can get back to us on?
Well, the discussion at the meeting was that there was information to provide you at one-on-one meetings that we're not allowed to talk to during executive session. So those of you that were interested in the entire picture and all the information, so you could all, as many of you as possible, could come to the executive session with all the information. We wanted to get that information to you first if you chose to do that, and then schedule the executive session. And there seemed to be a majority of city council that wanted to have those one-on-one meetings prior to the executive session, if I remember correctly.
The significance of that is that despite what people might think, an executive session is not a free form, let's talk everything under the sun. It's very limited to what you can discuss. So if you want to have the full picture before you go on to the executive section to discuss what you can discuss, that's what the one-on-one meetings are for, if you choose to utilize them.
Mr. Olson?
Mr. Reddington correctly stated my recollection of the last meeting we had on this issue. I specifically want to meet with the city attorney and counsel for our insurance carrier myself, and I was expecting that, and I want to have that happen.
Okay, now that's where my confusion is. Now, those meetings aren't designed to go into any discussions of settlement individually at that point, correct, Mr. Shepherd?
They can go into anything you want. That's the beauty of them, because they're one-on-one and not subject to sunshine, or the exception, they can discuss anything the council member wants to ask me, or so that's something that they're free to do. Once we get into the executive session, it's pretty limited.
Right, okay, this is where my confusion is lying, because I thought we discussed that the council wanted to have discussions about settlement in.
That's one of the issues you can discuss in the shade, but
Right.
There's a whole lot of other stuff that you can't.
Okay,
We'll eventually have the meeting, I'm assuming, to collectively discuss issues like that.
I have no problem with that. Then if you want to go ahead and finish scheduling, okay, you can finish scheduling those meetings then, and then we'll discuss then the shade at another time then.
Just so if I may,
Go ahead.
as I put in the update, that we would look to schedule these one-on-one meetings with council members that are interested in attending with Mr. Shepherd and Ms. Sutphin before they would, Mr. Shepherd would approach him on the shade meeting to talk negotiations and settlement with the council.
I have no problem with that. So you'll continue doing your scheduling, then go ahead.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else, Mr. Shepherd? Anything? City Manager?
I provided a handful of items on the update, just the fire pension board. As you will note, Mr. Yatsik has been a member subject to city council approval. He's asked for reappointment. It's a 4-year term, and unlike other boards and committees, the structure of this is very prescribed as to how who's on there. In this case, his position is a council appointment. I'm looking to have that on the meeting next 2 weeks from tonight for that consideration. I'll just leave it open-ended. You make the decision whether you want to reappoint Mr. Yatsik or not.
I just want to make a mention on that there will be other applicants that for the council to consider besides Mr. Yatsik.
Okay.
Okay.
Discontinuance of quarterly newsletter. Megan Glass, our public information officer, we put about $8,000 a year into this as part of our mailing, and we just think that we can hit a much larger audience more frequently by using an electronic form. And so I just want to put put the council on notice that we're going to be looking to discontinue that in the future. Again, we talked about the schedule of individual meetings, public art. You know, city administration, we're comfortable with recommending that the city council consider repealing that requirement as part of our land development code. We recognize it's a nice thing to have, but certainly it creates some difficulty to administer and certainly troublesome for the developers. I threw that out there for discussion. If I didn't get any feedback, which individually I have, we may have to talk a little further about the direction of that when we have probably more time. So we won't be pursuing it to the planning and zoning committee until a longer opportunity to discuss.
Okay, appreciate that, thank you.
And then lastly is, we're looking at the next meeting to schedule the Mountain Dora Health Facilities Authority discussion. Waterman Village is looking at $23 million in improvements. We haven't activated our authority for a number of years, but it's a pass-through in which doesn't present any risk to the city. It's certainly something I'm familiar with in concept back in Michigan, where we've done similar type of finance, tax-exempt financing for qualifying healthcare facilities.
What is our limit on our authority? Do we have a limit?
In this case here, they will be revenue bonds, and they will be assigned to the authority. And so when the bond council would be there that night, I think they will be able to answer some of that question, unless Mr. Shepherd has a specific answer.
If it's revenue bonds, first, the limitation is unpledged revenues from a source that can be identified and readily accounted for. So, some examples, there have been communication taxes in other cities. I don't even know if we have any of that availability here. Because you not only look at what you have as revenue streams that are not ad valorem, meaning property taxes, but you also look at what is left that's unpledged, if anything. And those are the things that will go into your capacity, along with trying to make sure that your rating is going to be adversely affected.
Okay, so just real quick, on the, when we issue that kind of, allow this to happen, are we affecting our limit? If we needed to go out on bond for something, we have an emergency or something we need to go out on bond on, are we affecting our ability?
Depends on the kind of bond. Okay, we're talking, Mr. Pastor is talking about a revenue bond. That's everything that's not ad valorem, meaning property taxes. If you have unpledged amount of property taxes, or if you want to go to what's called a general obligation bond, where it's voted debt millage, where the voters approve of, for example, capital improvements to build a new city hall, and it's going to cost $5 million, and it's going to be a $500,000 for the next 5 years, and the voters say, sounds great to us. Then you have no limit. They've just voted it over themselves. That's ad valorem millage, and it's a GO bond, and it's supported by the pledge of the revenues that the voters have approved. Revenue bonds or anything else. So whether it's sewer fees, water fees, et cetera, money that you can get that provides you a revenue source, depending on whether it's pledged. For example, usually if you have a water plant or a sewer plant or so forth, those are usually built based on the pledge and the fees that those things are going to generate. So I don't know the status of any of those fees here, and whether they are already committed or they're completely debt-free and therefore they're just a revenue source. I don't know. But that's the kind of thing you have to find out.
Okay.
So that will be part of the presentation from tonight.
Okay.
I won't belabor it. I've already mentioned it to Mr. Pastou. I don't think we've looked at our bond rating with Moody's or Fitch or S&P for some time, so maybe that's something to think about. Nothing to decide now because it'll be discussed in the future, but that's something to look at.
Ms. Spilling.
Yeah, are we going to discuss public arts tonight? Are we going to put it on the next agenda?
He's going to do that at another time. Has some feedback from council, I think, and from different council members, and he wants to tweak his proposal.
Okay, thank you.
And okay, I think I said on that. Then my question: when's the last time we did this type of a pass through? using the authority for
My
an entity in the city?
recollection is the last financing involved refunding back in 2004 using the Dora Healthcare Facilities Authority. So it's been a number of years. And I'm not even sure that at this point in time whether those bonds have been paid off. I suspect that. So.
Okay. Okay, you can get that information for us.
Yes, that'll be part of the
Appreciate that.
presentation. Yep.
Okay, any other items you all?
Yes.
We have some more? Just past due?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, city council comments. I have
I just have a change, too close. I just have a requested change to, the February 2nd agenda. I'd like to slip one of those items to the middle of February.
these are, okay, what's that, because this is still just a tentative items that he's putting together for us. This isn't set in stone on that yet.
Sorry.
I had talked with Councilmember Tillett, and on the February 2nd agenda, we have introduction of the non-discrimination ordinance in your request. And some of the individuals would be interested, just through conflicts, to have it on February 16th. By the way, Mr. Shepherd has already submitted the ordinance to us, so whether we do that on the 16th, that's perfectly fine from
That's
city
fine,
administration
that's fine.
standpoint. So.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd, we're getting that. Appreciate it. And, okay,
Mr. Mayor?
go ahead.
As I look at that same page, if we're looking to free up the discussion approval of Board of Canvassers, because, we're a little ways from an election.
Right,
I
there's-
suggest we can move that also down.
Actually, unless our whole system changes in the county, there's no need for us to have a board of canvassers. We don't conduct our own elections. When that happens, then we can talk about a board of canvassers. But the idea was, as far as accepting the certified election results, do we need a board of canvassers to do that? And I don't believe we do. All we have to do as a council is to accept those, the certification, since we do not, it's already certified by the Lake County election supervisor, and all we have to do is accept those.
That could be the case. I'm just saying that when we're trying to do all these other things, this one isn't this time.
Yeah,
So
next
it's
must
gonna
be
bump it down.
developed out right. Okay. Council comments, I just want to make a comment, and because I usually don't make remarks about comments made in the newspaper, but however, in a recent article in Sunday's Orlando Sentinel, Mount Dora was referred to as a dinky little community in Central Florida. As the mayor of this beautiful city, I take exception to that remark. Dinky is defined as puny, pygmy, shrimpy, slight, smallish, subnormal, toy-like, undersized. It is also used to describe something that is insignificant, worth little to nothing in value, smaller in size, or just overall crappy. And as a citizen of this city, I'm offended by this remark. I know we will not get this from the writer, but I am seeking an apology to the citizens and businesses of this city who work hard to make our community a place that wins numerous awards in various categories, and a place we are all proud to call home. So that's my comment on that. And any other council comments?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the only comment I have is I'd like to minimize as many meetings as we have here in this hall as we can. I know that's contrary to one of the guests that spoke here, one of the citizens that spoke, but it is so echoey, and the feedback we have here, and maybe it's those of us that have hearing aids, I don't know, or maybe it's an age issue, but it's an echoey place that is not intended for a meeting like this. I understand size is important, and sometimes we may need to do that, but it's frustrating, at least for me, and I think I sense for others in on this dais, this table, that have that same frustration, and public needs to hear, and it's perhaps echoey out there as well. And we, council members, certainly need to hear and have our voice heard. So I would like to suggest we minimize the meetings here.
I think they've always been minimized, from the standpoint that they've been needed from this, from the anticipation of an audience that's going to be larger than what we can be accommodated over in the other room. And tonight at the early part of the meeting, we did have quite a few people here that would never been accommodated over in the other room. So, and it's one of those things, and Mr. Krill can, I think, vouch for this one, that being a former school superintendent, when you have to do those snow days, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I think with the same thing applies to just having meetings in here, be damned if we do and damned if we don't. So it's just to try to take that under advisement to make sure that we keep them to a minimum. Any other council comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have several. First, I want to say that while I agree with the sound issue, there are elements today that I must say are wonderful. For the first time, I get to see Mr. Crail, Ms. Rich, and Mr. Robin in a meeting. And I think that is important, that at least the seating part is good. So, fully understanding the volume part. This one part of the element I think is good. So that's just my comment on that. And I think it's also good to get the chair's attention. I think it's easier, we're not talking over each other as much because it's easier to know if we're recognized. But as far as items, I just wanted to share some things that I got from people in the community in the last couple of weeks. Just make sure that it's something that's at the top of mind with people to the extent that it should be. Someone talked to me, or two people talked to me about code enforcement, and it's a philosophical thing where code enforcement, if someone calls, code enforcement goes out. And some people have mentioned in other cities where code enforcement goes just out and looks. And the way it was described to me is, that not just, this yard has grass 6 inches long, but go up and down the streets and look. So I just thought I'd share that with everyone. Then the other item that I had, there are two items that talked about an issue that I want to talk to us about in the future, or maybe whenever, is perceptions in the city based on lack of information. So there are two issues. One was talking about stuffing of envelopes for utility bills and how that's done and if there was a nefarious problem or not. But because there wasn't really good information available, some people went to the dark side and said, oh, some people get special privileges and others. And I always think about that as transparency. And similarly, I hear people tug at me and say, hey, this person's permit got pushed through or this or that. And I always, and I look at Lake County permitting, where in the unincorporated Lake County, you can go look up a permit and get limited, but some information on a permit. And when I used to pull pool permits years ago, I just for fun looked and pulled one up from 2002. And I'm not saying for solutions, but in concept, whether people think that others are treated one way or the other, I think it's a lot about perception. And with reporting, we can answer these questions and deal with them. Because if I get these questions, I'm sure other council members have gotten them, and I'm sure council members years ago have gotten the same ones. And it just seems like that's what we should work toward, so that we don't have this perception. And I'm not saying that the persons that are bringing this up are right. I'm just saying let's answer them. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Rich? What else? Have a motion for adjournment? Move we adjourn. We're done. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your patience tonight, and we will try to work on with Mr. Pascal shortening some of these meetings down a little bit if we can. But that's what we get with public discussions.